People with masks, a common sight now around the world. Some of the masks are sewn at home, others professionally made. And then there are the disposable masks, the ones also used in hospitals. They pose a huge risk to the environment because they contain plastic, and often enough they end up polluting rivers and oceans.
We've seen all around the world whales washing up with plastic bags and bottles and things in their stomachs. These masks are another addition. They're no better, no worse than the rest of the trash.
We can't stop using masks, but we should not have to choose between saving lives or the environment. So what should be done? Hello and welcome to our COVID-19 special. I'm Monica Jones in Berlin, and this here is a reusable mask. We all have them here at DW to keep each other safe, and I certainly keep this one. Unlike those single-use ones, which most of us wear only once or twice and then throw away. But what happens then? Time to take a closer look at an item that's become essential for our everyday life.
Disposable masks are everywhere. On the ground in Hong Kong, in the rivers in Ukraine, on the beaches of Italy and California, and on the streets in Germany, a growing problem.
You always think it's paper because you look at the tissue on the surface. But inside, it's at least 50% plastic, and the rest is cellulose or paper. But half of it won't biodegrade. Then there's the elastic ear loops, which are completely plastic. You might think the clip over the nose is metal, but it's also plastic. So overall, 70% of the weight of this mask is plastic and therefore not biodegradable.
They're designed to be used by medical professionals, but for many they've become a standard household item. A lot of masks end up in the sea because they haven't been properly disposed of. Used masks are considered unsuitable for recycling as they contain germs, not just coronaviruses.
They basically need thermal treatment to get burned up. In Germany, that means they're supposed to be disposed of as general waste, which means they'll be incinerated. That's a process which can be used to generate energy, producing electricity and heat.
But not all countries treat waste this way. In many places, masks end up in dumps where they get buried or blown into waterways. Scientists are working on alternatives, such as biodegradable cellulose from bamboo. The masks need to be robust, and developing them will take time.
The masks create new waste, which we cannot recycle. These materials are definitely not compatible with the ideal of a circular economy.
We are burdening our planet with a lingering legacy, one that is likely to outlast the pandemic by centuries.
And for more, I'm joined by Mark Miodownik from the University College London, where he's Professor of Materials and Society and Project Lead, the Plastics Waste Innovation Hub. Good to have you with us. Let's start, first of all, putting things into perspective. How big a global problem are single-use masks in comparison to plastic bottles and bags, so forth?
It's a very significant problem, single-use masks, and it's getting bigger. So in the UK, we did a calculation that over a year, it creates 124,000 tons of single-use plastic waste, unrecyclable. That's just in the UK with 65 million people. Now, if you think of the worldwide, you've got 1 billion people and more wearing single-use masks, then you realize it's an enormous amount of plastic waste, and it's growing every day.
Of course, I mean, as long as the pandemic is with us, we'll probably have to wear masks. But why do single-use masks need to have components that are made of plastic? Isn't there any other material available?
Well, yeah, I mean, so it depends what use you're using the mask for. For the general public, the masks are to protect other people. So in case that you have the virus and you don't know you have the virus, but you're out and about meeting people, then it's to protect others. And so you don't need to use a plastic mask, which are designed for surgery and hospital environments. You can use, and the data shows very clearly that cloth masks, which are made of cotton or wool, are as effective for doing this task. So you can use reusable masks and they don't need to be plastic.
Right. But it's I mean, as you said, I mean, surgical masks for medical staff, they should use the single-use masks that contain plastic. That in itself is a huge problem as well.
It is, and what we've done is, I mean, I'm not saying plastic isn't bad in itself. Of course, what we need to do is recycle plastic, and so we should be designing things for recycling. And what we've walked into in the medical establishment and hospitals is this idea. It's been sold to us as a very hygienic way of making sure people are safe in hospitals. So everything is single use. It's all incinerated afterwards. And the hospitals in developed countries are all set up to do this. But what this does is create a cycle of waste and CO2 emissions, which we have to wean ourselves off. We can't continue like this, even in hospital environments.
Right. I mean, I don't know if you can answer that question. It just popped into my head because I know that the European Union wants to ban single-use plastic this summer. That would also include face masks. Are they still available then? Do we know?
I think those directives they only include the use by the public. So things being sold to the public. They usually have exceptions, and I suspect the hospital environments will be exceptions because the whole of the hospital environment, including injections and all the packaging involved, is all single use. So I suspect what they're talking about there is banning single-use plastics sold to the public in terms of food packaging.
Okay. Well, we know that the pandemic helped temporarily, at least, to lower CO2 emissions. Do you think the pandemic will also help create more awareness when it comes to plastic pollution?
I think what people see with the disposable masks is you see them on the ground all the time. And why is that? Partly it's selfish people taking them off. They're contaminated. They throw them down the ground. So it's partly that, but it's because they're very lightweight. They then get blown around in the wind. They end up in the sea. They end up in the rivers. They end up in the countryside. So it's a very visible sign of our attitudes towards each other, towards the environment, and towards and this we've kind of got used to this terrible addiction to single-use plastic, and the masks really are emblematic. The masks really are emblematic of that. Yeah.
No, absolutely. But I mean, aren't they sort of incentives? You know, couldn't policymakers say, all right, for every mask that you dispose properly, we have containers put up outside supermarkets or wherever people are? Wouldn't that be a feasible solution?
Well, we looked into that. It's a very expensive solution. So you could say, well, OK, everyone should use single-use plastic masks, and we're going to put these containers everywhere, and we're going to monitor that and give you some incentive. But that's a very big infrastructure you've got to put into place. When in fact, an easier solution, which is the one that most governments are trying to persuade their populations to follow, is a reusable mask. One where you yourself, as a citizen, have the responsibility for cleaning and for using and for carrying around with you, and that in itself, I think, would change people's attitudes. That the idea of disposability, whether there is infrastructure or not, is actually not very good for the environment.
All right, Mark Miodownik, professor in London and certainly an expert on materials society, plastic waste, innovation. Thank you so much for your time.
Nice talking to you.
Time now for more of your questions. Over to our science correspondent, Derek Williams.
Is the new variant of the virus more dangerous than the old one?
Viruses mutate constantly, producing a never-ending stream of new variants. But most of the time, those mutations don't change the virus much, or they even have a negative effect on its ability to propagate. Still, every once in a while, a mutation will provide advantages, like making the virus, for example, better at invading your cells or better at replicating in them. And that appears to have happened with a new variant first identified in the United Kingdom back in September, which has in just a few short months become the form detected in most new patients there. That rapid expansion, the experts say, is down to the fact that one or more of the mutations it's accumulated make the variant more contagious. It seems to spread more easily. Exactly how much more easily is still kind of up in the air, but does that make it more dangerous? The answer is both yes and no. The no is if you look at things from an individual level. Although it looks to be a lot more contagious, the fast-spreading variant doesn't appear to be more virulent, so it doesn't seem to make the people who catch it any sicker than the old variant does. But seen from a population perspective, the new variant is more dangerous because the fact that it's more transmissible means that, of course, more people will catch it, and more people catching it translates into more people ending up in hospital wards and ICU units. Looking forward, the new variant could prove more dangerous for another reason as well, which is that contagiousness is directly linked to herd immunity. The more contagious a pathogen is, the more people have to be vaccinated to stop its spread. The good news is that experts are still cautiously optimistic that approved vaccines should prove just as effective against the new variant as they are against the old one.